G'day everyone and welcome to our Catholic Ed South Australia remote learning webinar number 2. This is Discover Microsoft Office 365. My name is Troy. I am a learning delivery specialist from Microsoft, and that's just Microsoft's fancy way of saying I am a former teacher. I just want to throw a little disclaimer out today and say that I am definitely working from home. I have my wife, and she's a school teacher. She's also working from home. We have our 2 kids who are obviously in school, and they're also working from home, and we have a dog. So I am sort of expecting at some point there's going to be noise and all sorts of carry on. So just get ready for it. This is possibly what you're going to be facing as well soon. Anyway, all those apologies in advance out of the way. Let me introduce you to a website that I think is going to be quite relevant to you. This is aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. This is our landing page and our launching page for everything to do with remote learning using the Microsoft stack. So there's information there for techies, there's information for teachers, there's information for school leaders and other people as well. So feel free to jump in there and have a look at that. The other thing is I want to draw your attention to the CSIL resources. So there is a link there, and there's also Deb's email address. And what I might do at this point is I might ask Deb to come off mute and introduce herself and say hi.
Thanks, Troy. Hi, I'm Deb Kroger. So I work in the Learning and Technologies team at Catholic Ed SA. And Leah, if you've got questions around Office 365, Teams, etc., from a CSIL perspective, then please do send me an email and we'll try to answer those for you.
Great, thanks for that. Now we've also got Elizabeth who's on the line. She's from the Microsoft store in Sydney. What's exciting is that for them is that they've actually been redeployed. So with the closing of the store, the retail store, instead of having to join the dole queues, Microsoft has actually redeployed them to do this really important work of supporting teachers and students and businesses and that kind of thing. So I'm going to invite Elizabeth to come off mute and say g'day.
Hi everyone, I'm Elizabeth. Feel free to call me Liz, but yes, as Troy said, I'm a product advisor at the Microsoft Store Sydney. But my position has shifted as of the last few weeks. I'm supporting Troy today. Later, he'll explain to you how to make the most of the Q&A, so I'll be there. So pop your questions there and I'll be there to respond.
Yeah, good point. So let's do that now. So just to let you know about the Q&A, there is a little button. If you hover your mouse over the screen, you should see that little button there, and you're able to ask your questions by text. Elizabeth or Liz will answer most of those directly for you through text, but from time to time I'm going to stop and ask her if we've got any questions about anything that we've covered so far. We do have a little bit of time at the end, and that's where we might be able to cover more of those sort of random questions. But for now, the Q&A is going to be more about what we cover as we sort of move forward. Okay, so here's our webinar agenda. This is what we're going to explore today. First of all, we're going to have a look at the Microsoft Educator community, which is your PD portal. It's where you go for ongoing learning. I'm going to talk about the difference between Office and Office 365, because whilst they do communicate and they do talk to each other, they are different. I'm going to talk to you about some Office software that you probably didn't know that you've got. When I say it's free, it's been paid for by Catholic Ed South Australia. However, it's free to you. So I'll tell you all about that. We're going to log into Office 365, have a little bit of an overview of Office 365, where everything is. Then we're going to jump into OneDrive. I'm going to talk to you about how to set up your OneDrive and also hopefully help you to instruct your students how to set up their OneDrive as well. And then lastly, we'll jump into Teams and play around with that. And then after we've wrapped, we'll talk about next steps and Q&A, and that's where we'll pretty much finish. So hopefully this is going to be quite useful to you today. So this is our Educator Center, which is education.microsoft.com, education.microsoft.com. Please notice there's no www. In there, we're going to, this is our professional development portal. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take you in to a web page, to that web page now. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to go to education.microsoft.com. There it is there, the Microsoft Educator Center. Okay, and see that this is the start page for that. What I want to suggest that you do is I'm going to get you to sign in. Okay, so you'll just use your school email address, connect into that, because it will keep a record of everything that you've done. It is gamified, that is that there's badges and that kind of stuff, but more importantly, it will actually keep a record of all the PD you've done, and it will assign the dates and the hours, etc. So if you get audited by the South Australian TRB, or if you want to demonstrate your learning to a leader at school, etc., you can print that off as a PDF or even just email the PDF, and you can demonstrate what you've done. All right, so these courses do count. They are recognised as proper PD by the TRB because they meet the AITSL standards. Okay, so keep that in mind. The other thing I guess I want to share with you is if we come down here into Explore Courses, it will actually keep a list of courses into 3 categories. The courses that you've not started, the courses that you're actually in the middle of, and the courses that you have completed. But it's really easy to find things. So for example, if I wanted to look for courses around Office 365, I just type in there, and what it does is it actually brings up all the different courses that are specifically around Office 365, right? And then if I was to come into, let's go into this one here, training teachers to author accessible content, you can see that the course is 1 hour, and if I was signed in, if I was in progress or completed, it would actually report that for me as well. So it's really cool. You can come and go, even though it goes for an hour. You can, you know, come and go over 2 weeks if you want, which is as long as you complete the course and do the little quiz, then you'll actually get the recognition that you've done that. All right, so you can go in there and find courses. So as today, if we go through and there's things that really, you know, grab your fancy, please just come up into that search bar and type. However, I want to share with you something else. It's called Learning Paths. All right, so that sits down here. So Learning Paths, what we've done is we've grabbed groups of courses and put them together in a sort of systematic, sequential way, and in ways that we think is important in terms of the order to learn. So you can see here when I type in Office 365, there's getting started with Office 365 and Windows for leadership. Started with Office 365 and Windows, you can assume that's just for teachers, educators, level up. But the one I really want to share with you is this one here, Office 365 Teacher Academy. You can see that's a learning path. And when you click on that, you see it's 11.8 hours of PD, right? So, and again, all recognised by this SATRB. And you can see there's a series of courses here, right? Some of them, looks like all of them are an hour. No, there's one that's half an hour. And you can get recognition for each one of those courses. And then eventually you would get recognition for the entire Office 365 Teacher Academy. This is if you really want to get your head around Office 365, this is a really good way to do it, whether you're new to 365 or whether you've been using it for a little while. All right, so that's that. Now, the other thing I want to share with you is, as I said, viewing your achievements, right? Viewing your profile. Now, I've not signed in, but after you've signed in, that's where you will go to get your audit sheet, certificates and that kind of thing. But remembering, you don't need specific certificates because the audit sheet has all the information that you need and you can just print that off. Okay, and as I said before, it's gamified, so you get, you know, different activities and all that kind of thing. Different badges and recognitions and that kind of thing, and it can be a lot of fun. So this is for you, but I also would like you to share this with the people that you are working with. Now, we have another course that's brand new. It's called Getting Started with Distance Learning. That's probably another course that you'll want to get in and do. So it's easy to find. It's just right here on the start page. All right, so that's the Educator Centre. Now, what I want to do now is I want to talk to you about Office, because Office and Office 365, as I mentioned before, are a little bit different from each other, but they do speak to each other. And I want to make sure that you are getting the absolute best out of everything that has been purchased for you by Catholic Ed South Australia, because they've spent money on subscriptions. And those subscriptions come with benefits and features and things that a lot of people don't even realise that they're there. So let me talk you through Office a little bit. So Office that we know and love, and it's got a super high saturation rate in the world, as you would know. You know, if you were all in front of me right now and I said, put your hand up if you've ever, you know, if you use Office on a daily basis, whether that's Outlook or Word or PowerPoint, almost everyone in the room is going to actually put up their hands. Office gets released every 3 years. So Office 2019 was the most recent one. Office 2016 was the one before, 2013, the one before that, and 2010. So what's going to happen today is I'm going to show you some bits and pieces that you can do with Office, and you're possibly going to go back to your version of Office and say, hey, mine's not doing that. And the reason why is because you're possibly on an older version of Office. In fact, I will say the reason why is you're definitely on an older version of Office. So I'm going to show you how to get the better version of Office, but I want to also explain to you the difference between Office installed down on our machine and what's called Office 365. So Office 365 lives in the cloud. So this is where we use Office through our browser, right? So whether that's Chrome or Edge or Firefox or whatever the browser you use, we don't need to have the full version installed down on our machine to be using Office 365. So we'll have a little bit of a chat more about this later, but definitely things like Word Online and PowerPoint Online and these other things as well. Now, what's really cool about Office 365 is Office 365 talks to Office down here. So whilst we may be using the full version, excuse me, the full installed version, at the same time, we're actually able to collaborate in the cloud. Excuse me. So that's the difference between Office and Office 365. Now, to just make it a little bit more, hopefully not confusing, but a little bit more complex, is we have this version of Office 365 Pro Plus. So the difference between Office 365 Pro Plus, which is installed down on our machine, and Office 2019 is Office 2019 doesn't mature as far as features. So if you're using Office 2016, which was released in 2015, you're using a 5-year-old version of Office that has not changed and has not matured. And the same goes for Office 2019, which was released in 2018. So it's coming up on a 2-year-old version of Office. However, Office 365 Pro Plus, which is a fully installed version down on our machine, is a subscription version that is constantly updated with new features. So every couple of weeks or every month or so, when new features are rolled out, they appear in Office 365 Pro Plus, but they will not appear in Office 2019 because Office 2019 doesn't change. So I want to share with you how to access Office 365 Pro Plus and how to get that onto your machines. Now, the cool news is this. Catholic Education South Australia has actually bought for each of you 5 free copies of Office 365 Pro Plus. So that's not just for you, but for every student as well. So what that means is you can put Office 365 Pro Plus on your work machine, on your work PC or your work Mac, but you can put it on 4 other machines as well. So that means you can take it home and put it on your home PC. You can share it with family members. That's not a problem. You can share that software with them. I'm not suggesting that you're going to share your username and password. No, not at all. We're not letting them into our school environment. All we're doing is we're installing the software onto their machine, and then they're able to continue using that with their own account if they want to sign in. So again, what we're talking about here is Office 365 lives in the cloud, so that's using through the browser. Office 2019 or 2016 is a static, unchanging version of Office, but what we've all got access to is 5 free copies of Office 365 Pro Plus. So let's look at how we're going to access that. All right, now the first thing we're going to see is about how to sign in. So it's really, really easy. All you need to do is just use your your email address and your password. So your regular school email address and password, and then you come over to www.office.com, www.office.com. And as you sign in, you're going to come to a launch page that looks something like this. Now, forgive me for a moment. I'm just going to get rid of that because we don't need to be seeing that. Okay, so when you come into, when you come into office.com, again, it's going to look something like this. Okay, it may look slightly different, but pretty much it's going to look like this. Now, the few things we need to notice when we look at our Office 365 start page. First thing is we've got our account, so we just make sure that we're signed in. And if we click on that, we can view our account and our Office profile and things like that. The other thing I want to share with you, though, is the settings wheel here, and that's really cool. When we click on the settings wheel, we have the ability to change our themes. And for students, this is really cool. And for some of us teachers as well, it's also very cool, being able to change our theme just to make it a little bit more personalized and a little bit more fun. All right, so you can steer your students to that, or you can even go in later and have a bit of a play around with that. I might choose that one today. I think that one's quite cool. You can also set yourself into dark mode. So if you want to save your battery power, also easier on your lights, on your eyes, that's really cool as well. All right, so that's in there. That's our settings wheel. Now, the other thing that we notice is we have all our Office 365. These are our browser-based apps all sitting here, or I shouldn't say all our apps. We have most of our apps sitting across here. But if we want to see them all, we click on this button here. It says all apps. And we can see that there's a whole heap of apps in there that we probably didn't even realize that we had. When we think about Office, we think Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook, OneNote. But look, there's so much more in there. There's Sway, there's OneDrive, there's Class Notebook, and there's other apps in there that you will never ever use in your life. And others, as you discover them, hopefully you're going to use them all the time. Okay, so that's that, and that's how we access that, by clicking on all apps. Now, what we can do is up here, we've got an app launcher. And if I click on my app launcher, I can come back to my Office 365 start page, like that, really easy to do. Okay, or I can jump to my apps as well. Okay, so you can see I've got those start apps and also all apps, and I can jump from in there. So no matter where I am in 365, if I get lost in a maze of documents, etc., it's okay. I can always come back to my app launcher, come back to my start page by clicking that, or jump to my individual apps. All right, now the other thing I want to share with you today is, as I said, how to access your copies of Office 365 Pro Plus. And it's really easy. Can you see over here where it says install Office? So what you need to do is you need to log on to the machine that you want to install Office onto. So whether that's your PC or your Mac, and then you click on install Office, and then you click Office 365 apps, and then you'll be taken through an installation process and it will install it for you. For most of you, it will be a very simple process. It'll just install that and off you go. Some of you will actually hit a bit of a snag where it will tell you that there's some sort of error. My suggestion, if that happens, is just uninstall, go into your Windows settings or your Mac settings, uninstall your current version of Office, and then come back and do that again. So you can do that on up to 5 machines. 1 is your work machine, 4 other machines. Okay. Now, again, the reason why that matters is because the features that you're going to get the most out of while working remotely, and also with working with your students remotely, are going to be found in that version of Office 365 Pro Plus. So we want to teach the students how to access this. Okay, now remember, you do have access to this recording of this video. So my suggestion is, once you get access to that, download it and then go back and watch this again and learn how to install Office 365 Pro Plus and give it a go, and then take your students through it however you're going to reach out to them. All right, I think for that, I might actually quickly jump into questions and see if there's any questions about anything we've covered so far, Elizabeth.
No questions at the moment. It looks like everything's going very smoothly.
Okay, cool. Good to know. Either that or I've bored everyone to tears. Okay, so I want to talk to you about remote collaboration. Okay, so the ability to collaborate across documents. Do you remember once upon a time when you used to open a Word document and it would say, and especially when you opened it off your shared drive at school, and it would say read-only access user 27593 has it's currently got this open, and you go back to that document, 3 weeks later, and that person's still got that document open and you can't access it. Those days are gone. What happens now is we're actually able to collaborate and share documents, and we can be on the document at the same time, and we can even see what each other are doing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how we do that. You can do it on the desktop version, but the best experience for that is through the online version. So coming in through your browser and coming into office.com, and you can see I've got the Word in the browser icon here. I've got Excel, PowerPoint, OneNote, etc. But if I was to click on Word, what's going to happen for me there is I'm going to be brought into this start page here, right? Very much like the latest version of Word. If you're using Office 365 Pro Plus, this is going to look very familiar to you. All right, now I can create a new blank document. Just give that a moment to kick in. Okay, and there you go. All right, so I'm now in to Word Online. So I don't need to have Word installed on my machine. I can go into this through the browser on my iPad, through my Mac, through my PC. That's fine. All right, now the cool thing about Word Online is it's autosave. So I'm going to call this CISA Today. And then when I hit enter, look what happens. It's autosave. So no more having to find that little disk button and click. And this is now saving in the cloud. This is saving in my OneDrive space. And we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Now, if I created a document, and I'm just going to show you here, I'm just going to insert a table. Now, remembering if you know how to use Word, then you know how to use Word Online. It's really quite straightforward. I could have, you know, all that content on there, and then I realize, hey, I want to share this with someone else. I want to share this with someone that I want to collaborate with. Unless I share it, it remains completely private and mine. People can't find my documents by accident. But if I click on share, you can see what happens is I get this dialog box come up. Okay, now I can find people by their name or by their email address. So I know that I'm looking up my boss. His name's Travis, because we're in this tenant together. So you're only going to be able to, by name, you're only going to be able to find people that are in your organization. All right. Now I can send that to him right now and he's got access. Okay. But I could also copy the link and paste the link into an email and I could share it that way. But I want to draw your attention. Can you see up here where it says anyone with the link can edit? When I click on that, you see I get some options here. Okay, so I can change that to only people in my organization. That's my organization, Microsoft Australia Education. So yours will probably have the name of your school. So I could change that so that random people outside the organization, even if they get the link, can't access. All right, so I could change that if I wanted. Now, do I want to allow editing? Maybe I do. Okay, I could also set an expiration date. Even though I've shared it on the 1st of May, it locks everybody out. And that's a really good thing to do when we forget that we've shared documents out or we want to keep it private. It's a really good way it's a safeguard. I could also set a password so they could still sign in and yet be asked for a password. So I could send that by another email or an SMS or something like that. And I can also block downloads. That is, I don't want people to be able to download this and make their own copy. And here with allow editing, if I click that, what I've done now is I've made it a read-only document. Okay, so that means that when people jump in there, they can only look at it rather than make changes. All right, so let's change that back to allow editing. I'm going to send that to Travis. I could add Travis by email address. If he's in my organization, I can look him up by name, etc. And then I click send. Okay, and now that has been shared. But what I want to share with you more importantly is when I do collaborate, when I do open it up to people, you can see here I can have multiple people on the document at the same time, and everybody is typing and doing their own thing. And at the same time, I'm actually able to see who's doing what. All right, so you can see everyone's got a little peg. If I was to hover over those pegs, then I can see their names and it can show me who's doing what in real time. All right, now I wanted to show you this because I know a lot of people use Google and they think that, you know, oh, Microsoft can't do that. That's just not true. You know, just like, you know, any company that has competition, you know, Microsoft start doing what they're doing and they start doing what we're doing and the competition goes on and we as the users in the end are actually the winners. So there we go. That experience is there for you. In terms of collaboration, as I said before, you can collaborate down on the desktop version, but you're not going to get that sense of immediacy that you get through the online version. The other thing about remote learning is when we use the online version, then we know that everybody has got the same version, right? So keep that in mind. Now, can you see up there where it says open in Word? Up here, it says open in Word. If I find that the cloud-based version is not doing everything that I want it to do because it doesn't have all the features, then I can click on that open in Word and it will seamlessly open the full version installed and I can continue. And I can have them both open at the same time. All right, so don't think that the installed version on your machine is not in the cloud. It can be as well. It's entirely up to you depending on where you store the document. All right, I might see if there's any questions about that so far. Liz?
Still no questions, but I was hoping, can you clarify if you can share it to students?
Definitely, you can share with anyone, right? So depending on how
so it's still part of the organization.
Yeah, that's right. So students will be part of the organization, so you can definitely share it with them. And depending on the way that your school has set up their Office 365 tenant, they may have set it up that you can share externally, and that way you could share with parents, or they may have switched that off. And that really does depend on each individual school. So when you go in and have a look at, let's just quickly have a look at this. When you go in and have a look at your share section, share button, if this is grayed out, anyone with the link, you'll know that you can't share with anyone that's outside of the organisation. But definitely the kids, if they're onboarded into 365, they're going to be part of your organisation.
Awesome, all good, thank you.
Great, well, let's keep going then. So let's talk about OneDrive. So OneDrive is your personal storage place. This is where you get to keep all your files, but lovely, you get to keep them in the cloud. All right, so when you store your files into OneDrive, then you have the potential to be collaborative. So if we're keeping our files down in My Documents and not in the cloud, then we can't collaborate, we can't share because it's not sitting in that cloud-based space. All right, but if we do keep it in OneDrive, then we can collaborate. Now, what's exciting is that every student, every teacher at your school has actually got 5 terabyte of storage. Okay, which is a whole lot of storage. So it's really good to steer the kids towards their OneDrive space, because that way the school can manage what's going on in the student space. But letting them know that they've got 5 terabyte of storage means that they're going to keep a lot of their stuff in there, and it's just much better for the school to be able to do that, rather than them setting up a Dropbox or a consumer Google Drive or something like that. All right, so that's the start of OneDrive. Now, OneDrive looks like this. Okay, so you can see here on my Office 365 start page, OneDrive is that little blue cloud. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump back into my Office 365 start page. Remember, I've just come to my app launcher, click on 365. And here we go. All right, so here is my start page, and there is OneDrive. So when I click on OneDrive, it opens like this. All right, now look what's already here. There's that CISA Today document that we just created. That's already there. It's telling me that it was created 6 minutes ago by myself, and it's reminding me that that has been shared, which is pretty cool. All right, so I want to explain a few things to you. When we're over here, we've got a little bit of a menu here, and we've got My Files. So these are all my files that are living in my OneDrive space. All right, if I haven't shared them, then nobody can access them. But if I do choose to share them, then I can decide who's going to be able to access them. Now, look what I've got over here as well. Can you see I've got this little shared button? So when I click on shared, what shared does is it actually shows me all the documents that are shared with me. That is, these documents belong to other people, and they've shared them with me. All right, so there's these documents here. Now, at the same time, though, I've got shared by me, which means that I have shared these documents out with other people. So it's a good way to keep track. So I can go back in there and decide, do I actually want to keep these shared with other people, or do I want to remove them? The other thing we've got is we've got a recent tab, which is just going to show all my recent documents. It's really easy to go back and find things using that. Discover is actually going to show me documents that other people in the organization are using that are shared out and that may be relevant to me as well. And the other thing is the recycle bin. Now, you know when you delete something from your computer and then you clear the recycle bin and it's gone? Well, now what we can do is we can actually take one further level, and when things are moved into the recycling bin, we can come and find them in our OneDrive recycling bin, and of course that can be emptied as well. All right, so that's what that looks like. Now, another thing I want to show you is that OneDrive is not just about storage. Okay, so whilst yes, definitely all my files are there being stored and backed up 6 times, 3 times at a data center in Melbourne and 3 times at a data center in Sydney. But it's much more than just storage. As we've seen there, the way to organize your files and share them, etc. But have a look at what happens here. I'll come down to this document here, and I've got my little ellipses there. I click on those 3 dots, and I can open the document, preview the document. I can share it from here. I can copy the link from here. I could manage the access, that is remove permissions to share it or add them again. I can download a copy onto my hard drive on my machine, delete it, move it, copy it, rename it. But the one I really want to show you is this one here, version history. Now this is really important, especially with our when we're collaborating or working with those students. You can see that I've actually got 2 versions of this file. Okay, now depending on how old this file is, I might have multiple versions. So what would happen if, imagine if I opened that document and I made some changes and it automatically saved, but then later I decide, oh, actually the previous version is the one that I want to use. I don't want to use this one that I made the changes to, or one of my students goes in and makes changes and totally, destroys the document. I can go back by clicking here. I can open that version and just look at it. I can delete it, or I can restore it to the main version. All right. So that's really, really good to be able to safeguard my files and know that I've got previous versions in there. So again, what I did was I just came to the file that I was interested in. I click on the 3 dots. I come down here to version history, and there we go. There's all the different versions of my file. Now you can see here my first version was made by me, and second version was actually edited by Stephen. All right, so it'll actually show me who's done what in those files as well. So that's one of the really cool things about OneDrive as well, is that you can access version history, and we need to make sure that we go into the online version. Now, another thing I want to share with you, just when you're inside OneDrive, is you can actually open files from in here. So instead of going in and opening Word and all that kind of stuff, I can actually just click on new here, create a new folder if I want, but look, I can also create new Word documents, Excel documents, PowerPoint, etc., all from inside that browser app. All right, cool. Now, remembering I'm going to make these slides available to you and very, very soon after the presentation, so you can have access to that. But I've got 2 links here that are really relevant to you. One is setting up OneDrive on your machine. I'm going to talk about this in a moment, but how to set up OneDrive on your PC and how to set up OneDrive on your Mac. All right. If you want to set it up on your iPad, just go to your App Store and download OneDrive, and then you can play around with it that way. But for PC and Mac users, I want you to go and have a look at setting up your sync client. Now, what does all that mean? Well, it means this. Have a look here at I'm just going to change the view here to a list view. Have a look here. Okay, so I've got these folders and I've got these files, and look, there's my CISA Today file. Now, what I've done is I've actually opened up my file manager. Those of you that are using Macs, it's called Defender. Those of you that are using Windows device, it's a file manager or a Windows Explorer. When I click on that, it brings me into my files, right? And this is where you guys go in and grab your files. Yours is probably white. I'm using the dark mode, but this is where you would go and find your files and possibly your shared drive and all that kind of stuff as well. But you can see here I've got a thing called OneDrive MSAU EDU01, Microsoft Australia Education. So this is actually my organization's OneDrive synced to my computer. Now yours would probably say OneDrive and then the name of your school. Could possibly say also OneDrive for Business. Now look what I've got. I've got these folders and I've also got these files. And when I come back into my OneDrive, you'll see there's those same folders and those same files. So remembering in the cloud, I've got 3 copies backed up in Sydney, 3 copies backed up in Melbourne, but down here on my file manager, I've now got 1 copy saved to my local machine. Okay, so really I've got 7 copies of my data. There's really no way I'm ever going to lose anything ever again. So what you need to do is when you open up your file manager, if you're on a Windows 10 machine, you'll click on the OneDrive icon and then you will type in it'll bring up a dialog box and you'll type in your school's email address, your school email address and password, and then it will start to sync your files. Okay. But I want to share something really important with you. Can you see here how I've got little ticks and I've got little clouds? All right. So what the ticks mean is that document is saved on my local machine and in the cloud. But the little cloud means it's saved only in the cloud. All right. So if I lose internet, I will only be able to access those ones with the green tick. All right, with the green ticks, the white ticks and the green ticks, both of them I can access. But these ones here, I won't be able to access. Now you might say, why would you want to do that? Because I've got 5 terabyte of storage in the cloud and I've only got 256 gigabyte down on this local machine. So there's going to be some files that aren't important. I want to be able to access them. I want to be able to see them, but only when I've got internet, because they're living in the cloud. They're not filling up my machine. Okay, and that slows down my machine and I might not even have the space. But if I want to change a document so that it can become local on my machine, look what I do. I just tick the little box here. I right click and then I say always keep on this device. Okay, what happens is it starts to sync and there we go, it's a green tick. So now that is on my local machine. And if I want to change that back, I make sure the box is ticked. I right click and I say clear space. And there we go, it's now just in the cloud. So for your files that are important to you, you're probably going to say, actually, Troy, I just want to make sure that all the files that are important to me, I'm just going to click them all. All the files that are important to me, I want to right click and I want to keep them on the device. That's fine. Go ahead and do that. But you may say, look, some of these things, you know, my last year's archives and these other files as well, they're actually not so important. So I can just right click and clear space. And so that's true of folders as well as your files. So coming back to this, how do we set all that up? Well, those are those links there for you. Okay, so that's your PC and also your Mac. Syncing to your iPad has a very, very small amount of space. You can keep files on your iPad, but my suggestion to you really is to keep them in the cloud anyway. Okay, now the other thing I want to share with you before we move off OneDrive and open up for questions about OneDrive is I want to explain to you about what's called known folder move, or KFM. So what known folder move does is it syncs your existing desktop, documents and pictures to your OneDrive on your machine. Okay, so let me share with you what I mean. So when I come in to my, when I come in here like this, all right, what I do is over here on my OneDrive, right, my OneDrive, my account, I right click that and then I go into my settings. Okay, once I'm in my settings, it opens up a dialog box which looks like that, and then I click on backup and then I go manage backup and it says to me, let's give that a moment. And it basically gives me the option to sync my desktop, my documents, my pictures into OneDrive. So that means everything that is already in documents, everything that's already in pictures, and everything that's already in desktop will be synced into OneDrive. Otherwise, what happens is if I don't do that, what happens is all my files continue to live down here in this PC, which is down here, and they're not able to be collaborated on, they're not backed up, etc. All right, so to make sure that your desktop, your documents and your pictures are synced, again, have a look at this and set this up. Now, what you're going to notice is that there is a link down the bottom there all about how to set up known folder move, so you can get in there and follow that or speak to your school techie. Okay, just looking at time, it's 11:39. I might just stop, Liz, and see if there's any questions.
All good. Just one quick thing. This might be outside the range of what you're going to be covering, but what's the advantage of, say, like a shared OneNote versus working on a shared Word doc? Just very briefly.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually cover that tomorrow, Liz. We're going to talk all about OneNote and Class Notebook, so we might hold on that question and you can log back in tomorrow.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, no worries. All right, now let's talk about Teams then. All right, so Teams for Education, we had our last workshop where I talked all about Teams. So if you're new to Teams, please go back and download our last week's webinar, all about using Teams and how to use Teams remotely. I'm not going to go through the basics of Teams, I'm actually going to, again, like I said, let you go back and watch that webinar. But Teams is an amazing tool that allows you to bring all your classes together into hubs. You can bring your O365 experience into that. So what I want to show you now is I want to show you how Teams incorporates Office 365. Excuse me, I'm going to close that one down. So when we're inside Teams, I'm just going to have to find where we are. So if I come here and then I come down to Teams, let that load. So here I am in my class team, right? But this could be a school team. It could be any kind of team that I've set up. And over here in Files, right? When I click on Files, this is where my files live. Now, the cool thing about putting things in Teams is when I share a document from my own OneDrive, then I have to share it out and go through that whole share process. When I create something in Teams, anyone that's already a member of the team has full access to those documents. Okay, so I don't need to share. I just create them in Teams, and it's really easy to do. I just come down here, I click on the new, and I can create a new Word document, etc. And I can create folders and be organizing those. So I'm just going to click on Word document. I'm going to call this one CISA Today 2. And it creates a document. Look what happens when I do that. My full Word online, my full Word in the browser experience happens inside Teams, right? So I'm not having to go out into the browser or anywhere else. I can still open it in the desktop app if this isn't doing everything that I want it to do. But just like before, it's got full functionality for Word online, and I can be creating that document. Now, when I close that document, everybody that's a member of that team now has access to that document, and they can go in and use that. Now, the other thing that I can do is I can bring my documents up here. All right, so I can add them as tabs across the top. So you can see here, I might want to add an important Word document. So it says to me, which of those important documents do you want? I'm going to use the grade 3 writing. I'm going to post to the channel about the tab as well. And now what happens is that now exists as a Word document as a tab. So people don't have to go into files and find it, but I can rename that if I want, right? I might say, I don't want it to be called Word. I want that to be called grade 3 writing. So I want to make those documents really accessible to my students inside Teams. I can do that, even though, yes, they are living in the file section. It's just a lot easier to put them up here. And at the end of that lesson, when that's no longer relevant anymore, that's fine. I just remove. Okay, so that's how I add my Office 365 tabs across the top. Now look what I can add. I can add Excel documents, Microsoft Forms, OneNote, PDFs, videos from Stream, PowerPoint, etc. All right, so my whole Office 365 experience can come inside of Microsoft Teams. All right, so there's no need to share. Now the other thing too to remember, those are the shared files, but look over here, these are my personal OneDrive files. So OneDrive lives inside Teams as well. Okay, let's look at our next steps. So if you want to learn more about remote teaching options with Office 365 and Teams and everything else, aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning. If you want to find answers, not just to Teams, but for Office 365, you can pop into support.microsoft.com/education. And then also remembering that those online courses are there, education.microsoft.com. Now, CISA has set up for you, as Deb told us before, a great series of resources here called a guide to facilitating learning online, and also Deborah's email address is there for you as well. Now, most importantly, or maybe not most importantly, but very important, we want you to be able to get the slides and the recordings. So it's very easy. Open up your browser and go to aka.ms/CISA webinars. All right, so it's aka.ms/Caesar webinars. That's everything that we have recorded so far. Remember, that's where you go to find what's coming up. This is where you go to find out what's already happened. So in about an hour or two, I will make sure that today's recording and slides are living inside there as well. So if you haven't got a pen and paper yet, maybe you want to write that down, aka.ms/Caesar webinars. Another thing I want to draw your attention to is our newsletter. So if you want to sign up for our newsletter, and trust me, we're sending out a lot of information at the moment on remote learning. So that's aka.ms/MEC newsletter. And if you want to reach out to me directly, that's my email address, or you can find me on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Facebook. Now, what I might do is I might just make sure that we've got this one so that people can grab the recordings and also the slides, which has got all those links. And how are we going for questions, Liz?
You've covered them all. There was another one about transferring files from an external hard drive. I quickly answered that one, but if you want to go over that, you can.
Okay, so what was the question, sorry?
I had to transfer files from external hard drive to OneDrive.
Yep, very easy, very, very easy. What you do is you would plug your external hard drive into your computer, and it will appear down here under this PC, and then you would just copy the files and drop them into your OneDrive over here.
And one more, if you want to download Office 365, the Pro Plus, does that mean that you're running the latest? Sorry, I'm trying to make sense. Should we be running the latest version of Office?
Yeah, that's right. So if you download Office 365 Pro Plus, then you will be running the latest version of Office. That's exactly what that is. So as I showed you before, go to office.com. Actually, I'll just take you through it again quickly because it is important to remember. We go to office.com on the machine that we want to install it on. We install Office 365 apps, and Bob's your uncle. Okay, Liz, I'm guessing.
All good.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
Yeah, all good.
Our questions, which is great. If Deb or Karen want to say anything before we sign off.
No, just thank you very much for the time, and thank you for everyone that's joined the webinar today. Thank you so much.
Excellent. Now, can I make a suggestion to you? Please share these recordings and these slides with your colleagues. It's really much easier for them to watch the webinars than for you to go through and try and explain it all to them. So make sure that you grab those links, or that link there, share that out by email to everyone at your school so that they can get this up and running, because it really is, and as you'll see through these series of webinars, it really is a great way for you to reach your students, collaborate with them, connect with them through this sort of, remote learning crisis that we're in the middle of. All right, so I guess that's it from us. Thanks very much, Liz. Thanks very much, Deb. Thanks very much, Karen. And we'll see everyone at our next webinar in a few days' time.